Hey, what's going on? So doing the just weekend review going into the week of October 20th. And so just gonna check observations and then just see what we should look forward to. And then I'll just be back Monday pre-market to see what things look like. But just kind of a quick recap of everything and kind of looking forward. So first thing that's interesting looking forward at least is that um, just saw this news thing. We're still in the government shutdown. Supreme Court says we expect a round of funding on October 18th, which is today. So we'll just see how that kind of works. And I guess the Fed is to hold the opening meeting on the 24th, and then the U.S. House will be on recess next week. So we'll just see if we're able to come to a deal to open up the government. But you're looking at the docket, not much is happening as far as economic news. But we do have a lot of earnings to look forward to, which is interesting. And so I was looking at the NASDAQ earnings calendar. So Monday, nothing that I'm really paying attention to. But then Tuesday, we do have Netflix. So that's something that I'm keeping on my radar here. Maybe Capital One with all the financial risk. So I guess people will be watching that to see if the credit risk and default rates are kind of coming through, because that was a theme the last couple of days with all the regional banks and stuff. So that'll be interesting. Wednesday, we have Tesla. So obviously, that is a big thing. And I know a lot of people have been, or at least on social media, there's been a lot of posts of a lot of call volume on Tesla. So we'll see if there's some crazy spike going into that. So I think that might be worth watching. And then Thursday, we got Intel. So that'll be interesting. Um, with the whole government deal and government investment deal and all that AI stuff. Let's see how the earnings play out there. So I'll definitely be looking into that. And then I think that's pretty much it as far as the big key names that I'm concerned with. So definitely keeping an eye on Netflix on Tuesday, Tesla on Wednesday, and then Intel on Thursday. So that is from an NQ perspective, definitely paying attention to that. Um, I guess outlook. So I guess what I like to do is looking at just how flow kind of evolved from the option standpoint for last week. And so when you look from the 13th, flow is bearish. You kind of move forward, or I guess we can, 13th flow is bearish, and then we start on the 13th, flow is bearish. Going into the week, it continued to be bearish, continue to be bearish. Thursday, continue to be bearish. Friday, continue to be bearish. Oh, and now I broke it. And so that actually plays out too with the Qs. So, I think yesterday there was a lot more bearish bets and options. And of course, as I'm doing this, the platform starts to freeze, which is funny. So there's that. I think there was definitely some dark pool prints, which I'll walk through on the charts in a little bit. But from the dark pool prints, we've actually launched upwards, and so that's something we'll look into. But before diving into the charts, just kind of quick analysis ahead on Grok. So it looks like sentiment into next week is bullish. If we can break out of that range, and for ES, we're kind of cautiously positive. So there you go. More bullish on NQ, kind of cautious on ES. For GPT, we are saying that cautiously bullish on the NQ going into next week and slightly optimistic on the ES as well. So bullish from a AI perspective, kind of scanning all the social media and stuff. And then on Claude, cautiously bullish on NQ and neutral to bullish. So I think AI scanning all the news and all the social media tilt seems to be more bullish for next week. So we'll see if the options flow kind of reflects that going into Monday. So that's kind of interesting there. And yeah, I guess I wanted to show the dark pools. Here we go. So for the dark pool levels, what I thought was interesting on Friday is we had, a couple prints here in the billions, the 659 and the 66071, which also was printed on Thursday as well. So, I put that on the charts. And then for the QQQs, oh, Yeah, for the Qs, we had kind of similar, but like one notable 1.2 billion print at this 598 level, which I'll talk to on the NQ charts there. And so, we can kind of dive into that. But before showing the actual trading chart, we'll look at just how we performed. Let's look at the indexes first. So it's interesting. I mean, across the board, when you look at kind of zooming in right on the kind of daily action. So the NQ, we pushed down, we really tried, and then later in the day, we fought back up and we closed green. Same thing with the ES. Didn't break a new high, um, but definitely a little bit more bullish, broke above all the closes in the last few days after that big drop. So there you go. ES didn't really break above all these closes. So I think that's where the cautiousness comes from. Like NQ is definitely leading there. Interesting, the Russell didn't close green. So it kind of fell over and just kind of, I mean, it held this support. But I guess to be fair, it did make a new high when everybody else didn't yet, right? So it's definitely hanging out there. And the Dow is just kind of in more following the ES, it looks like to me. So I feel like going into next week, the NQ it looks to be the most bullish of these four. So we'll just keep an eye on that. On the VIX front, on that big push down, we had a nice kind of spike near 30s and then super pullback back to 20s. So that is, I guess quelling any fears there, which is kind of interesting. Dollar, we're kind of rebounding after a little bit of a sell off. The treasury yields were kind of back to those lows of September. So we'll kind of see. And in gold, eked out a new high, but then just pulled back, broke the low of Thursday. And so really we just have to see, is this like if people are going to buy this up and push this back up, or could this be the beginning of a correction? It's way too early to tell. I wouldn't, I think I've seen people on social media say, like, if Bitcoin can reach $100,000, why can't gold reach 5,000 or even 20,000, right? And just blanket statement logic, I guess that does make sense, right? And so I guess we will see. I know there's been some posts on social media that people are like melting their gold and going to gold dealers, and maybe they're selling, maybe they're buying, I don't know. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. But interesting with gold, like even with the NQ kind of pushing back up here and everything starting to look bullish, we have this nice pullback in gold. So we'll just see how that kind of shakes out. So I'll definitely be watching that. So how Megatech kind of ended. So Apple was strong. Microsoft closed green, kind of where it's at. Amazon testing support swept that low of August. So we'll see if that is a make or break kind of going into next week. Google is, bouncing back. It actually swept. Oh, wow. I didn't even see that. It actually swept on Thursday, the high of September. So and then Friday we closed green. So I feel like that is super coming back to life. And then Meta holding up here, support. Nvidia seems like after this nice little sell-off situation, we're kind of eking back up. So there you go. Tesla, earnings are coming, so maybe we're poised for something. So that might be something to really pay attention to. And then the Qs obviously are the Qs. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some strength. I mean, I like how Apple's looking, pushing back up here. Got Google kind of like really leading again, actually. Tesla, that we know earnings is coming, or it looks poised there. So we shall see. Everything else is kind of holding support for now. So yeah, I mean, I think GPT and AI seems to be right. We're kind of more bullish there. And then how things look on what I'm calling the mega spy. And so these are just other tickers outside of what overlaps with the NQ. So Broadcom still holding up, even though red day, red day, red day, indecision day now on the close. So that's interesting. Berkshire bouncing off support, closing green, but just kind of hanging out there. JP Morgan bouncing off of that support level where we kind of sold off after earnings. So we'll see if it can continue to hold. That's interesting. It bounced right off of it. Ooh, wow. So I don't know what happened with the LLY, but kind of gapped down and tried to close it. So that might be, and I guess we have earnings coming. So maybe there's something to pay attention to there. Visa just kind of sideways there. Same thing with Netflix, but we do have earnings. So let's see. Not sure. Costco still, I mean, it's holding up longer term, but near term, we got this little downward action. So we'll see. It didn't close that gap like I thought it would. So it held above the EMA. So maybe it's bouncing back. So there you go. And then the SPYs are the SPY. And so I guess quick look on the trading chart. So we'll look at the NQ here really quick. So the dark pool level that I was showing was about here, and which was basically the low of the regular trading hour, more or less. All this was really kind of pre-market going into the regular trading hours. This kind of push down here, but here this low held, and we kind of kept pushing up from there. So that is a level I'm definitely watching. And it's the same with the ES as well. So we can look at that really quick. Yeah, and for the ES, we actually had two levels that were pretty distinct and kind of similar where this happened pre-market, and this was kind of the lows of the day where we pushed back up. So definitely watching those as support. So we'll just kind of see how that plays out. And so I guess let's switch back to the NQ here. So if we look at, well, this is 15-minute. Let me go to the 1 hour. Yeah, and so on the 1 hour, I mean, there's still a lot of, big imbalance from that Friday sell-off, right? And so there's just lots of selling pressure here, right? And so let's see if we can kind of get up there and see what happens. I think this level I had marked as an area of interest, and so that continues to be there. And so we'll just see as if we can kind of keep going up and see how this 25 180s holds, and then eventually this 25 290s if we can get up there. I think those are really key areas for me. Obviously, if it gets back down to this 24 850s where this level is, I'll be interested, and in that dark pool level, obviously. But I think here, there's like you can kind of see buyers are kind of stepping in here, a little bit of buying imbalance here, and we're kind of pushing back up. And so we'll just kind of see if that works. Haven't seen any like big buying imbalance yet. Like we've just been inching up into these sell down levels. So let's just see how that kind of plays out. And on the ES, I mean, similar story really. I don't see any crazy buying imbalance on the 1 hour aspect yet. But definitely a lot more. No, I mean it. Looks pretty similar to the NQ. So I would say same story. Watching these levels, I have alerts here, and watching this for support. So we'll just kind of see how that all plays out. So I think for me, so I'll just come back on Monday to kind of see what price looks like pre-market. Like the trading chart really doesn't matter until pre-market, until we see how things shake out there. So I think for me, I think my going into tomorrow, I'll just see pre-market how we've kind of moved in relation to these sell-off areas and these support levels, and then just make an assessment. But I think from how we close, it feels like potentially we're more bullish going into next week. Although option flow was more bearish this week as well, so we'll just have to kind of see how that reconciles through this week. But I think Monday maybe there's a continuation at least to these highs, and then we can fall over. If we do fall over pre-market and we get closer to these dark pool levels, maybe that's a buying opportunity to try to push us back up. And so I guess we'll kind of just see how things go. I think that's all I got to cover. And as far as the news front, I think I know Trump has been doing I mean, nothing's really changed since Friday, so I haven't really seen much, right? Like China stuff is cooling. I think maybe there's some positive news coming out of Ukraine with ending the war. I think the stuff in Gaza and Hamas and that whole situation is still kind of ongoing, but getting resolved. Um, yeah, so I guess we will see. So that's it for me. We'll check back on Monday pre-market, see how things look, and we'll see how we go. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next time.